Japan is very different to the West. When watching anime, the cultural differences may not be something you think about, but I think Japan's collectivist society affects the media it produces. So what is a collectivist society? Basically, it's a society which cares more about the group than the individual. We can see this in many things like overwork culture, where workers are expected to work unpaid overtime, or just the politeness that's expected in Japan, or trains showing up on time. But I think this culture and mindset leads to people not really saying how they feel, or not communicating in any meaningful way. I think you can see the extreme effects of this with hikikomoris and the declining birth rate. The way Japanese people interact and the culture behind it is undeniably different than ours. So it only makes sense that it would affect the way characters interact in Japanese media. This is just what I think though, so take it with a grain of salt. I'll get back to that, but now, I hate anime dialogue. There's really good anime dialogue, and there's really bad anime dialogue. I'm gonna try and compare them and explain where I'm coming from. First, let's look at good dialogue. Good dialogue should be like a game of tennis, with retorts bouncing back and forth and waiting the right amount of time to strike back. That means either waiting for the ball or jumping across the net and hitting it right away. A conversation shouldn't be linear, it should flow naturally from point to point. And it should serve a purpose, whether that's making you laugh or informing you of what's happening, or making the growth of a relationship or characters believable. It should use characters' personalities and be believable that a character is saying it. It should also be efficient. Something that recent comedy films keep doing is over-talking. This is a ridiculously lazy, unfunny, and cringe joke, where they repeat things and just keep talking and think it's funny. Anyway, a good example of dialogue is...
But if it comes up tails, you forget about the fight and you both come with me. Are we clear on this?
Give me that.
This scene in Samurai Champloo has really good dialogue. It doesn't waste your time and it's entertaining. You can learn so much from these characters just from this short amount of dialogue.
Are we clear on this?
From this, you immediately learn that this girl is strong-willed, demanding, maybe a bit selfish. Then Mugen crudely saying,
"Give me that,"
shows he's more wild and vulgar, and this is consistent throughout the scene with lines like,
"Kiss my ass."
The amount of lines each character gets also serves to show their character. The girl, with the most lines, is clearly the most upbeat and talkative, while the guys stay more silent, showing how they're more serious or have seen more hardship. This scene clearly shows characteristics and moves the plot forward. The dialogue is efficient and feels bouncy, with comebacks coming at the right time. You can clearly feel their unique personalities and how they bounce off of each other. Now let's take a look at bad dialogue in anime. A staple of bad dialogue in anime is Nani? And lots of, "It can't be, blah 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 blah." This is bad because it doesn't give any real insight into what the characters are thinking or who they really are. When dialogue should be an opportunity for characters to express themselves and their personalities, and bond with other characters and grow a believable relationship. But we learn absolutely nothing from this kind of dialogue that's so prevalent in anime. And here's where this links with Japanese culture. Japanese people will often talk like that, where the reaction to something is just, "Really? Sugoi desu ne?" That is how people talk, but to anyone outside of Japan that may seem extremely forced and repetitive. It's boring and doesn't do much to show someone's personality, and that's because Japanese society doesn't want you to have a personality. And it just makes conversations not flow very well in anime. And this gets worse the more anime you watch, seeing the same default responses in anime over and over. Completely characterless conversations. But this feels more like a problem with anime in general rather than just dialogue. The characters, art style, the plot are all recycled and become emptier and emptier with each new recycled anime. So is this bad dialogue just because of the differences in culture? No, I don't think so. Because movie dialogue shouldn't be exactly like real life, and it's not like Japanese people are robots. Part of why anime is so popular in Japan is the escapism it gives them. Most of the popular anime characters are outspoken and give interesting dialogue and have personalities. And that's maybe because they can't be outspoken in daily life. So why is there this bad dialogue? The cause could be that a lot of anime have completely soulless and rushed productions. Just look at the plain direction of isekai anime with the reused designs and environments and ideas. People mainly point out isekai for this issue, but it's affected all of anime. The second most of which I think is romance anime, where character interaction is arguably the most important in making relationships believable. With the Samurai Champloo scene, the dialogue would make you believe that these characters want to be with each other / not want to be with each other. But so many friendships and relationships in anime feel forced and unnatural because of this bad dialogue. This scene is the perfect example.
デリケートな問題だから言いたくないか。
見て綺麗
ほんとだ、空の色絶妙。
梅干し色。
時色じゃないですか？
もう少し空が見えるところに行こう。
そうね。
Everyone in this scene reacts to things in the same way. The dialogue tells you nothing about the characters. Good dialogue should move the plot forward naturally, but here the sudden inclusion of the girl saying the sky is pretty is really unnatural and is purely there to force the plot forward, in an unnatural way of showing the main girl can't see colour and how that makes her sad and unique. And from this interaction I wouldn't believe that they were friends or wanted to be around each other. Because they're not bouncing off of each other, it's not a natural progression. It gives no reason for these people to like each other, when dialogue should be used to convince you that characters enjoy being with each other. Good dialogue also leaves room for interpretation. Emotions shouldn't be declared. There should be nuance in the words characters say. Generally, anime struggles with subtlety, but I think a good example is this scene.
If you think getting hit on the head and not waking up excuses you from your duties, you got another thing coming. Abandoning your post for 3 days is unacceptable. I'm talking fines here, fines!
It's simple but gets my point across. Haruhi being mad or whatever, but the nuance is her and Kyun's relationship and how she is worried about him. I really like the body language in this scene, with Haruhi leaning over the bed and being excited. Anime often doesn't utilise body language, but when it's combined with dialogue it can show great nuance and make you feel things. Something else I'd like to add is that anime dialogue can just be unnatural because it's not real life. And it being animated makes it more believable than if it were live action, so for me, more over-the-top or cringy dialogue isn't as bad as it would be if it were in live action. Something I've noticed is that a lot of dialogue in anime feels kind of stilted and set in stone, with characters often waiting their turn to say something. This may link with Japanese culture as well, with politeness just being the norm. But for me, it just feels weird seeing anime conversations be so cordial, even when they're joking around or supposed to be having fun. That's why I love the dialogue of something like Gintama. It's fast and characters respond fast and talk over each other. Whereas it seems like other animes really take their time when making their characters respond. This could be for production reasons like stretching out the show or just not having enough time or money to make it better. And this would make sense as I usually see it in the more generic and cheap looking anime. I think a reason that some people are still hesitant to watch anime is dialogue. While there are a lot of anime with good dialogue, there are easily as many shows that have awful dialogue and are still popular for whatever reason. Classroom of the Elite is literally one of the worst anime I've ever seen. Episodes where nothing happens, full cast of characters that are nothing more than tropes. Dragged out and pointless conversations to try and make characters seem smarter than they actually are. Generic designs, generic characters, generic everything, and of course, bad dialogue. Bad dialogue and bad characters are connected because dialogue makes up a big part of a character. What is a character to you other than the interactions and actions you see them take? That's why anime with good characters have good dialogue and soulless shows with no characters have bad dialogue. Because there's nothing there other than forcing the generic plot forward and pushing the illusion of relationship growth. So I can easily see how bad dialogue could put someone off from watching anime. I think a lot of people don't realise the importance of dialogue. I would argue that it's the most important thing to an anime. How do you connect to a story? Through its characters. How do you connect to characters? Through the way they interact with the world and other characters. And what's a large part of that? Dialogue. For me, if dialogue is bad, it's hard to ignore. For a mixture of reasons, I don't think dialogue is seen as important for anime producers / artists. whereas dialogue is a big focus for Western artists. This could be because of collectivism or rush schedules or just a difference in what cultures enjoy, but I don't think it's impossible to create a good show without good dialogue. Shows like Real Life have awful dialogue, but the themes and story still shine through and hit me and resonated with me. I think that's just a testament to the skills of Japanese artists, who with different tools and skills can manage to move me without good dialogue. It is a shame though, because if shows like that had good dialogue, they would be literally perfect. I feel like dialogue is the essential thing, but in anime it's always just a bonus, and shouldn't be expected. While bad dialogue can feel unnatural and make an anime bad, there are still plenty of anime that manage to be good with not amazing dialogue. I just wish shows with good dialogue were more common. It sucks growing up with anime and slowly wanting to watch fewer shows and not being able to get into pure shit. In a medium where bad dialogue seems to be accepted, shows with good dialogue will always stand out to me.